Greetings to all. It's such a pleasure to welcome you back to the week 2 of DevToberfest Tooling and Frontend Tuesdays. We are happy that you are part of DevToberfest, where you get to drench in the knowledge of latest and greatest SAP technologies and innovations to stay future ready. Experiment with hands-on tutorials, take part in fun events, and earn points. Write it down. The top 10 winners will be awarded an all expense covered trip to 2026 TechEd location. It's such an amazing opportunity. I am Rekha Dior, a developer advocate at SAP and host for this session. Joule leverage Joule Studio to implement custom Joule skills for smart customer advisory companion. We shall keep this session interactive. We would love to know from which location or country you are joining us from. And also, you could ask your questions throughout the session in the YouTube live chat. Now, let's welcome our experts, Jacob Tan and Trinidad Martinez. Jacob is a solution architect for SAP BTP and AI with a keen interest in deconstructing technical problems and rebuilding them into intuitive, user friendly solutions. Off the clock, he pursues the thrill of adventure through his hobbies, which includes snowboarding, surfing, and fast cars. He is always eager to venture into new technological landscapes to build innovative solutions for partner organizations. Trinidad is an SAP BTP and AI solution architect in the SAP's Partner Excellence Center, where she helps partners design and implement AI powered solutions. She loves diving into the latest tech trends just as much as she loves exploring new places around the world. Now I will hand over to the speakers for topic presentation. Stage is all yours, Trinidad and Jaco.
Small technical issue. It says that it fails to share the screen. Don't know why. Share. Okay, now it can. Please confirm.
Yeah.
Okay, so thank you, Reka, for this nice introduction. So, as you said, my name is Trinidad, and I will share this session with my colleague, Jacob. Before diving into explanation and deep dive of how we built our smart customer advisory companion prototype, we will start with a short overview of Joule. We will briefly go over its core capabilities, clarify what we mean by skills and agents, and introduce Joule Studio, the tool that supports their development. Okay, now the slides doesn't want to move. Okay, so let's kick off then with the overview. We all know Joule is the AI copilot that understands your business. It enables end users to have natural language conversations, whether it's retrieving information, navigating smoothly across SAP and even on SAP applications, or performing transactions like creating a job requisition. SAP is building capabilities for the different line of business cloud applications. By Sapphire 2025, we had already 1,600 line of business skills available, complementing the standard Joule capabilities. And since July, with Joule Studio, you can extend Joule by creating your own custom skills, and very soon also your own agents. Let's understand the difference between Joule skills and agents. Joule skills enable the automation of rule-based, repetitive tasks by defining workflows that follow a fixed, predetermined path. When a user request matches a skill definition, Joule triggers the corresponding workflow. Skills can integrate with APIs and other automation tools to extend their capabilities. Some examples of Joule skills could be like automatically creating a ServiceNow ticket using natural language or fetching detailed information from third-party APIs. AI agents, on the other hand, are designed to handle complex tasks where the solution path is not predetermined. Agents will break down the problems into manageable subtasks using advanced planning and reasoning, mimicking human problem solving. Agents can leverage predefined skills, collaborate with other agents, and evaluate multiple approaches to determine the optimal solution. AI agents will use natural language models, LLMs, and various tools to tackle a wide range of business challenges. An example could be, for example, shipment logistic optimization, where an agent can check weather and traffic conditions, predict delays, and propose solutions to ensure timely and efficient delivery. In summary, we can say for agents, we say, tell me exactly what to do and I will execute it. While for agents, we just tell the problem and the agent will figure out the best way to solve it. So now that we understand the difference between skills and agents, let's see how we can build them. SAP Build allows us to develop a variety of BTP extensions, including CAP, RAP, Fiori, and SAP UI5 applications. You can also build business workflows and mobile applications with SAP Build. And SAP Build now will let you create SAP Joule skills and soon agents as well with its tools. Let me show you the reference architecture for building and deploying skills and agents in SAP Build. Custom skills are developed using Joule Studio, which allows you to integrate with processes and task automations, as well as actions to consume SAP or third-party APIs. Agents leverage as well AI models from the AI Foundation Orchestration Service and document grounding services. On top of that, SAP Build Monitoring, Lifecycle Management, and BTP Identity Services support deployment and management of Joule skills and agents. Once deployed, Joule references the custom skills and agents together with the SAP delivered skills and agents, making them available to users. If you want to get more details on how to extend Joule with Joule Studio reference architecture, I share here a QR code and a link where you can check links for further learning resources, etc. So now that we have covered the key concept of custom skills, let's explore our practical business use case. This example will show how custom skills can be applied to solve real problems and deliver business value. In this use case, John is our main persona. He's a support engineer that receives support requests via email, chat, or telephone calls. He would like to have a set of custom skills that will facilitate his day-to-day task. Let's walk through the diagram to see how John typically handles and explore how Joule can automate the day-to-day task. John received requests such as, how do I implement multi-tenancy in SAP BTP? He would like to enter these queries directly in natural language into Joule for process assistance. First, he needs to check the S/4HANA Cloud Service contract to see if it is valid or not. So if the contract is expired, then John will like to receive a link to directly access the service contract in S/4HANA Cloud. This way, he can review the contract and maybe reconduct its validity or notify the customer without needing to switch to the S4 application and search for the specific service contract. If the service contract is active, John can proceed with the request. Then, to analyze the query, he will like to get information about past cases or requests that were similar to that one. So for that, we already implemented in a previous session using similarity search and knowledge graph query features, we implemented our Smart Advisory Companion app that is running on Cloud Foundry. So we would like to access the APIs of this solution to get information about similar projects that are available in our database. Once the similar projects are reviewed by John, he will create a service call in SAP Field Service Management. So he would like to be able to create this service call without moving and switching applications to the SAP Field Service Management. And the last step he usually does is to send an email to the customer, sending some information and as well a link to the service call that was originally created. So let's have a look to a short demo where we showcase the result of our prototype. This process begins when John receives a new request through email. He copies the details from the email and then asks Joule for help. The first skill will check customers' S/4HANA Cloud Service contract. In this case, the contract is expired, and John receives a link to open it directly in S/4HANA Cloud. He reviews and extends the contract, and then he can go back and continue his task. Now he checks again the contract validity and sees that the contract is active, and he can continue the flow. Now he would like to find out the top 5 similar projects related to this customer request. He gets a list of similar projects, and he can explore any of the projects specifically with the specific project ID provided in the list. Once he has more information about this specific case, what was provided as solution, etc., he can as well ask to our backend application more information, including documents. So he gets a list of documents, and he can directly from here click on any of the links provided and obtain more information about this specific subject he would like to learn more about. In the next step, he would like now to create the service call directly in SAP Field Service Management. So the service call is created, he receives the confirmation, and he can directly open it from here to continue adding any specific details or checking whatever he needs to specifically in SAP Field Service Management. In the last step, he asked Joule for creating a summary of the discussion and sending an email to the customer. So he receives the information and the email is sent directly to the customer. And we have finished our workflow. So in this implementation, we have break down all the workflow into smaller skill pieces that Jacob will show one by one how we have implemented. If required, all the steps could be consolidated in a single streamlined workflow. Looking ahead to the very near future, Joule AI agents will step in to deliver the perfect balance between flexibility and streamlined execution. Joule AI agents will be able to plan, reason, and act autonomously, as John has been doing now with the different steps he was asking questions for, and the agents will dynamically orchestrate the modular Joule skills we have just implemented in this demo. If we look at the architecture, we can see how our Joule skills integrate seamlessly with various systems via destinations. It connects to S/4HANA Cloud for managing service contracts and to SAP Field Service Management for creating the service calls via APIs. The skill consumes as well our Smart Advisory Companion backend application built and deployed in SAP Cloud Foundry runtime. This backend leverages several powerful SAP BTP capabilities, including SAP HANA Cloud for data storage, predictive analytics, and application function libraries, as well as vector and knowledge graph engines we have been using for the similarity search. And of course, is accessing Generative AI Hub for utilizing large language models. The Joule skill itself is implemented using Joule Studio in SAP Build and is deployed directly into the Joule tenant within SAP BTP. With each user interaction through the Joule application client, Joule intelligently selects the most relevant skill to execute based on the description of the available skills, ensuring an efficient and contextual response every time. And now, without further ado, I would like to pass over to Jacob that will then deep dive and explain how this was implemented. Up to you, Jacob.
Thank you so much, Trinidad, for the Joule overview and the use case elaboration. So earlier you have seen an end-to-end demo flow of how Joule can support John. Now with that understanding, let's dive into the implementation deep dive of how we can implement the use case with Joule skills in Joule Studio. So a quick recap of the use case and what we'll be implementing is mainly focusing on the persona of John, an advisory request processor or service support engineer, right? So what are the capabilities that are actually required? So here we define what Joule as a co-pilot could trigger an action, a defined API to support the persona activities. And here are the list of APIs involved. Basically, we want Joule to empower John to search for similar projects, related documents from SAP Help, search, I also check the service contract validity, creating service calls, and also to send a summary email to all the different stakeholders. So let's see how do we implement them in Joule Studio. There are two parts in this deep dive. So first, I will show you what are the configurations that are required, such as the environment and the destinations. Then later we'll walk through step-by-steps of the Joule project development for our use case. So now let's focus on the first part. So here in Joule Studio, we can create an environment, and we basically use an environment to control how we deploy projects and launch Joule skills. We can deploy a project in more than one environment and for different project versions. So we can also isolate the deployment of the different projects or different project versions. So this means that we can deploy and run the same project with different configuration and make these different configurations available to different users. So depending on the line of business and also on the security parameters that you have set within your company as well. So here under Joule, you basically will be able to see the Joule skill project later on, where how we can deploy in the specific environment. Right, so next we will configure the destinations, basically pointing to the different systems. So first here, we will have to bring the destinations into Joule Studio by clicking on the adding part. And then after that, we will just have to associate the destinations to the specific environment of your choice, which you want your Joule skill to access to. So for this case, we have selected the one that we want to expose the destination to the specific environment. Right, so here's a snapshot of one of the destinations that we have created in our BTP sub account, basically pointing to our Smart Advisory Companion backend API. So specifically to our use case, here are the three systems that we'll be integrating Joule with. So first is the backend API as mentioned for our use case that provides the persona the capabilities to perform similarity search through the RAG in database embeddings powered by SAP HANA Cloud, knowledge graph, and other analytical feature. Basically a Python Flask app that's been deployed in the Cloud Foundry. Then second, we have the S4 HANA Cloud system for service contract management from the requester. And third is the FSM system for service call management and expert allocation. So earlier we have seen how a destination can be added from BTP into Joule Studio. And here is just a snapshot of the defined systems endpoint in Joule Studio, such as the different APIs. So that's about it for now to basically configure the tenant and the backend of Joule Studio. So next we will focus on the Joule project development, where we will show you the step-by-step breakdown on how we can create a Joule skill for development and testing purposes. So here you'll see how easy it is to import an API specification into an action project. So first, we have an API specification file that's based on OpenAPI format being exported from our backend. So this option is helpful if we have already obtained and customized an API specification file. We can easily upload and to be consumed within the business process through actions. So you give it a name. So next, we will basically select the endpoints that we want to add, as we might not want to utilize all the endpoints. So afterwards, we will then basically choose the specific endpoint that we want to modify further. So we just go straight to test, and from there, we can trigger the endpoint through testing, and we can define the outputs right accurately. So with this output that we see here on the response, we can then add that to the output fields by clicking on the generate output button. Then from there, we should be able to see the required input for triggering this action and also the outputs that we have added in. And you can also configure whether you want to have a specific outputs to be removed as well. So once that's done, we can save it and to deploy it and also to publish this action project. So here is another option where we can manually define the actions with custom specifications. So it's a similar flow to previous. So we just give it a name and a description of your action project. And what we need to do next, just to define the specific endpoint that we want to have that custom action. So for this case, we're adding a S/4HANA Cloud endpoint for service contract management as mentioned in our use case. So as we're getting all the records, and then from there, we can define the specific destination that we want to call, and then we just could test it out and generate the output. So similar flow as previously, having the response body, we can just generate the output that we want for triggering this action. So you can see how easy it is to actually define an action project, basically pointing to the specific systems endpoint that you have developed so that you can bring it into your Joule project next. So now we'll proceed on to show how we can actually create a new Joule skill project in the lobby itself. So what I need to do is just to select the Joule skill that we create and to give it a name and a description. And just to be cautious about this is to define the description as specific as possible in terms of what do you want these Joule skills to perform for your persona. So with that, we will now move on to the next part where how we can actually get started with the Joule skill development. So here's a full list of Joule skills we have created for our use case. And we'll be going through some of them just to highlight some of the features of Joule skills in developing custom Joule skills in Joule Studio. And the rest of them are pretty much similar, which by end of today's session, I believe you should be able to implement them by yourself. So with that, let's get started with the first scenario. So here's a scenario flow specifically for how John could actually utilize Joule to search for similar projects from an advisory request coming either from an email or through a call with the affected customer. So how do we implement this capability for John? So here's how it looks like in the UI editor of Joule skill. Looks pretty simple. And now let's just dive straight into it. So for this scenario, we will allow Joule to actually generate output response for us. And then first, we will need to define the Joule skill. Just give a very specific name and a description. Importantly to tell Joule what you want to use a search term for, right? So as mentioned, by default, Joule will actually generate the output response for the skill. We just leave it as it is. So next, we will define the input and output. So search term will be the input parameter that we'll be using it to get it from the user to pass it into Joule. And as for the output itself, we will just define a list of projects to be returned back to the user from Joule. So next, what we'll do is to add an action activity to the flow. So basically, we just call the previous action that we have created before, such as the retrieve the top 5 list of similar project that's calling the similarity search. So then we will create a destination variable and select it for this action to be called. Basically, what I do is just to bind the destination variable to this action. Right, then what we'll do is in the action itself, we will just select the input for this action to use, which is the search term. And then we'll just review the output results from this action. You will see that a list of projects will be retrieved. And this is what we wanted. Then last but not least, we will just assign the output list value to the output parameter, which we have created earlier on. So this is the last step towards the end of a very simple Joule skill. We just need to point that value to the end step. So once we are done, we can just save it, release and deploy into our environment of which we have created. So just make sure to select the right destination during deployment. So here first we select the environment, then we will choose the destination that we've created earlier on in the variable. Right, so for the second scenario, we will explore how John could utilize Joule to get related documents from SAP Help based on the search term. So here's a glimpse of the entire flow in the editor of Joule Skills. The only difference is that there's an additional activity of sending a message, and to generate response by Joule is actually disabled, as we would like to customize the specific output message that we want to return back to the user. So similar as before, we will just create a new Joule skill, and we will give it a name and a very specific description. So as mentioned, we will just disable later on that part. So first we will define the input, and we will just call it a search topic. And we will assign the action to the flow, and we just select the one that we have created called the search related SAP documents by query. And for this case, we will bind a destination called helper. And what we'll do now is to assign the search topic parameter as an input for the action activity. And we review the output, which is the list of values that we retrieve. So for this scenario, we will disable the auto generation of the output response, as we want to manage the output ourselves. So next, we will add a send message activity to the flow. Then we just open an editor. Here, we will just choose the list message type. Then here we can actually start to map the values to the different fields of the list message. Then we will just edit the list item. Basically, the list content, we will just select the list array. As for the different fields, we will just assign the different values in the object itself to the different properties in the UI elements, such as the title, description, and also the snippet of the output response. So we will also add a button for which the user could in fact open the document. So for this case, we will just bind the URL value to it. And of course, you could also add other attributes to the send message UI. And here we can see a preview of what you have configured. And once you are happy with it, we will just save this message activity in our Joule skills. And in the last step, in the end activity, we'll just leave it as it is, as we don't need any of that. So once we are done, we can save it and we'll deploy the project to our environment once again. And this time out, it will be an upgraded version. And then we will just deploy it and we will run it to see how it actually looks like in Joule. Okay, so here now we have fired up. We'll just type a message to find related documents about the specific topic. And here you can see it returns you a list, a very nice list UI. And from there, you should be able to see and can navigate the user to the specific documentation. Right, so for the third scenario flow, we will explore how John could utilize Joule to actually check for the service contract validity based on the contract ID. So given a scenario, let's say John is actually on the call with the customer, right? Then through the conversation, he's able to get the service contract ID from the customer, and then John is able to quickly just talk to Ju, and Ju is able to perform this action for him. So here's the flow diagram for this scenario, and it starts to add a little complexity of condition branches based on the action output response. So let's see how to implement this. Similar like before, right? We will just create a new Joule SKU, give it a name and description. So first thing, let's disable the option for the auto generation of the output response from Joule. So as for the input parameter, we'll be taking in the service contract ID as an input parameter. Then we will select the action to basically get a specific service contract from S4. So here, what's next? We'll just create a destination variable of S4 and assign that value to this action. And in the actions output, we just select the service contract parameter, which we have created earlier. So once done, we will just review the output, which is the result object of the service contract. So then next, what we'll do is to add a condition branch here for a check. So here we will basically open the conditions editor to define the logic behind the branch. So for our case, we just use a description field just to check if it contains an active contract text. And we'll just review the summary for correctness. So next we will add a send message activity under the valid condition. So in our message for a valid service contract branch, we simply just return some values from the service contract, such as the description and the ID. So what I'm saying here is just define the values that have been gotten from the response from the action project, which is basically calling an API to S4 on a cloud. So once you're done, we just save it. And now in the other branch, when the service contract is not valid, what we will do is just to return a message with a navigational button for the user to basically renew the service contract. Of course, for this case, we can also call an API to just on the spot renew the service contract, depends on the parameters that we receive. Okay, but for a demonstration purpose, we just want to allow the user to navigate so that you can see other parameters or other data about the user. So with that, we will just deploy the updates to our environment once again, and we just see how it looks like in Joule. Right, so here in Joule, we just provide Joule with the service contract ID, and here you can see that the service contract is valid. And for the expired one, here we can see that there's a action button for the user to basically navigate to S/4HANA Cloud. So for the fourth scenario flow, we'll explore how John could utilize Joule to basically create a service call if and only the service contract is active. So here's the flow diagram for this scenario. So everything remains the same as before in terms of the checking for the service contract. So the first required input parameter has already been shown earlier. So next, what we will do under that condition, we will in fact add an action activity. Basically, it's just to create a service call inside the condition branch. And then here we will create a destination variable for the FSM. So here we'll define a second input parameter such as the subject topic, and this value will be retrieved from the advisory request, be it in an email or in a call. And here we basically just bind the values in the creation of the service call action, using that as an input parameter for the field. And here's just a quick walkthrough of how you can actually utilize the formula formatter in the editor for the input parameter. So we simply could format the numeric value to string, but there are of course um, other functions that you can utilize as well. So next, what we will do, we will add a send message activity just to return the newly created service call back to the user. And here we will return some values such as the code, the subject, remarks, and to also allow the user later on, you will see, to navigate to the specific service call in FSM. So here we just retrieve the values based on the data mapping that we have retrieved the output response from the FSM. And define the status state as well. And then as mentioned, the navigational button for the user to go into the specific service call. And as for the other branch, if the service contract is expired, we'll just simply return a message back to the user. Right, as we will be managing the output responses ourselves, so we will disable the option for you to auto-generate the response. So let's review the flow, and we are complete with this scenario. So what we'll do is just to test it out again. We will just save and deploy this updated version into our environment. Right, so back to Joule, we will validate the service contract by entering the following messages. You can see that we also define a very quick subject topic over there. And here you can see that the service contract is expired, but if we show a valid one, basically just changing the ID itself. And you can see Joule basically will be able to determine that this service contract is valid and to also trigger the action to create the service call for you in FSM. So towards the end, after the engagement with the requester, usually a summary email will be sent to all stakeholders. So let's see how Joule can automate this process for John. So instead of creating a Joule skill in the lobby itself, what we will do here is to create a automated process project for this case. So we just select the process type for this project, and we will just give it a simple name and description. So for those developers who are experienced with build process automation, this is nothing new for you. So for a start, we just give it a name that we are creating. And we'll start by defining some variables that we use for this process. So basically values which we want to use, or rather to pass through this process, like the stakeholders, email address, the email body parts, subject. Of course, you can define it to your own format later on. Then we'll start by adding a send mail activity into this process flow. In that sense. And what we will do is just to assign those variables into the parameters of these steps, such as the headers, the receivers, the subject, and here in the body itself, we will just define those different parts of it. And we'll simply use all these values in this simple process. And once done, we'll just save it and release this process project into your environment. So what I'm trying to show you here is just to show that even though the process is deployed in your environment, it is still not being implemented as part of Joule skills, right? So important step is to actually to publish this process to the library. If not, it will not be made available for you to choose and add it as an activity in Joule skill, which later on I will show you in the step itself. So under versions, you can just choose the one to deploy and to publish it into the library. Okay, so once published, back to our Joule skill project as before. Now we will create a new Joule skill just to manage that. So just give the specific name and description. And we just call it a send summary email to all stakeholders. So likewise, we will just define all the required input parameters. So by now you should be familiar with these steps, as we will later on send a customized message back to the user. So we'll just disable that option again for Joule to auto-generate the response, right? Then next, what we will do is just to add that process that we have published successfully into the library, into the whole flow. So if you have not done a step, you should not, you will not be able to see this process in this selection field. So what we do is just to bind all the related parameters into the variables. Then towards the end, we just return back a message back to the user to inform that the email has been sent. So note that the process activity is a fire and forget process step. So we can't retrieve the output from there to our flow. So once that's done, we can just save it, release, and deploy it to our environment. Right, so let's test it out back to Joule, continuing our conversation. Here we can tell Joule to just summarize and draft an email and send it out for you to all stakeholders. And by that, you should, earlier on, you should have seen in the demo flow that my colleague Trinidad has actually showcased how an email has triggered to send it out to the different stakeholders. So we have just showcased all the implementations of custom Joule skills of these 5 scenarios and features from Joule skills. And these skills are actually very specific to our use case, where now Joule supports John to automate some of the advisory requests, while now John could actually perform other value-added tasks for his clients. So that wraps up pretty much of what you can do with implementing custom Joule skills in Joule Studio for our use case, as you have seen the demo flow before the implementation deep dive. So with that, Trinidad, over to you.
Thank you, Jacob. So let me share my screen again. So thank you, Jacob, for the clear and detailed deep dive implementation explanation. So let me now provide a short summary of what we have covered and look at the outlook for the next steps for you. So we have seen that SAP aims to deliver an extended library of skills across the SAP line of business cloud applications. In parallel, you partners and customers can expand this library by implementing your own custom skills tailored to specific business need, and very soon as well to implement your own Joule agents. To explore further, we share here some links that provide you access to the Joule Studio product page, which offers a guided tour and hands-on exploration of the platform. There are also interactive value journeys available where you can dive into use cases for different personas, including both Joule skills and AI agents. And finally, you can stay engaged with the community, particularly with the AI interest group, where you can ask questions, share experience, and learn from other users and experts. The features of Joule skills that we presented are now generally available as of July 2025, so you can start using them immediately. AI agents capabilities are coming soon and are expected to be generally available by the end of Q4 2025. As we discussed in the overview section, Joule skills will serve as the foundational tools for AI agents. So this is a great time right now to start preparing for their adoption and integration into your workflows. Stay tuned for more sessions on Joule skills and AI agents that are being delivered as part of the Oktoberfest event and the upcoming event TechEd in November. We will also host a session in December once the AI agents will be generally available, where we will showcase the extension of this prototype with the use of agents on top of our skills. So as one of your speakers today, and in the name of Jacob as well, I would like to thank you, the product management team, especially Maria and Miguel, that have been working with us very closely. And I would to thank you all the participants today for joining and engaging in the today's session. So with that, I hand it over to Reka. Do we have any open questions we should take care of?
So all the questions have been answered by you both, Jacob and Trinidad, already on the YouTube live chat. So with that, so thank you very much, Trinidad and Jacob, for unpacking an interesting real-world use case demo of Joule Studio and answering all the questions our participants had. As Joule Studio is a low-code, no-code tool, it accelerates the development of custom Joule skills and AI agents to enhance Joule capabilities, as we just saw. So thank you everybody for being with us till now, and I hope you found this session helpful. And here is a gentle reminder. At the end of the day, we will release a session tutorial to validate your grasp of the sessions. It will be having 5 questions based on all the 5 sessions of today and carries 1,200 points. Do take it up and earn points to progress in the DevToberfest game board. We have 3 more upcoming sessions on tooling and front end today. Do take part. So until next time, take care.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.